let me ask you though, but before you was married, who cooked for you? Who cleaned your clothes? Who tidied up for you? Do you become unable to do that when you're married? Can you no longer pick up your own clothes?
I'm getting married, so I don't have to do that. I'm getting married,
why
so I don't have to do
that. Why would the wife have to be responsible for ironing
because
your
I'm providing
clothes?
everything for her. I'm providing her with where she's living.
It's a marriage contract.
Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Well, I've got quite a few things to say, actually. And I think some of them you probably won't like, or you'll probably take it in the wrong way. And let me say, first of all, I am not a feminist. I am not. But there are things wrong in the Ummah, and they've been wrong for quite some time. And we all need to take accountability for that. If sisters really felt valued and loved and cared for, they would not be falling for feminism. And I would just want to give you one hadith, which I rarely hear brothers mentioning. I mean, I find it quite unusual that this hadith is just not mentioned. It's where Aisha radiallahu anha was asked, what does the Prophet do when he's in the house? And I'm paraphrasing. And she said he used to serve his family until it was time for prayer. He used to serve his family. But what happened was within the Muslim world, this kind of got skewed. And it became that the wife is the one that serves and serves and serves. And it just became quite in a lot of cultural countries.
Yeah, so let's respond to all of these points. So I got it that the big grievance is that Muslim men have gone too far in taking advantage of the privilege that Islam gives them, and now they've gone beyond what Islam actually allows in relying on their families, like their wives and their daughters, to work in the home, and they're not contributing enough in the home. Is that what you're saying?
Pretty much. I would say, yeah, that's it. If you talk to sisters, you got sisters rebelling so much now that they're just completely like leaving what they should be doing. And that is leaving the house without their husband's permission. So
you say that you think the cause of that is the behavior of Muslim men. That Muslim
on a large scale, yes. Yeah. 100%.
So I disagree with that completely.
Yeah, you disagree, but you have to look at where has it. I know you disagree, but if you're not willing to open up and see where it's gone wrong, and if you speak to sisters,
I haven't denied that there are Muslim men who will mistreat their families. I never denied that. There are examples, but you're making a large claim about Muslim men in total. And when you do that, you have to bring actual statistics. You have to bring some kind of data to back that up. It cannot just be anecdotal. The much greater harm that is happening in the world today is that there's equality marriage, patriarchy, and the idea of male authority is no longer respected. And you have many Muslim families, unfortunately, Muslim marriages that break up for this reason, because traditional gender roles have been thrown in the trash. When you cite the hadith of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, you're saying this hadith is rarely mentioned. How so? I've heard this hadith constantly from compassionate imams, from these not feminists, and it's a good hadith. Yes, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam did have khidmah of his family, no doubt about it. But does that mean he was like splitting half of the chores, half of the cooking and cleaning and domestic duties with his wives? No, there's no evidence of that, and there are plenty of hadith that mention his wives cooking for him, cleaning his clothes, managing those domestic affairs, raising children. Where are those hadith being mentioned in the mainstream quote unquote dawah? You don't see it. You see just this feminist interpretation of one particular hadith, just because the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam would help at home. I help at home. I help my wife a lot, actually. That doesn't mean that we have an equality marriage. It just means that if there's something that I can do to help my wife, she takes care of the kids, she takes care of cooking, she takes care of cleaning. She does a lot and is busy all day long. If there's something within my capacity, because I have my own responsibilities, if I can help lift something or clean something or cook something, if there's a need for that once in a while, I'll do that, no problem. And I feel like I'm following this example of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. But a feminist will point to that and say, no, this is not complete equality. You are exercising authority over your wife. You are oppressing her. You have relegated her to the kitchen. Therefore, you're abusing her. Blah, 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 blah. No, we reject that. That has nothing to do with Islam. Do you agree?
I didn't mention anything about equality. I never said about equality. There's different roles in the marriage.
I'm painting the picture of what the reality is, because you're painting a picture
you say that
Muslim men are just completely.
Let me ask you though, but before you was married, who cooked for you? Who cleaned your clothes? Who tidied up for you? Do you become unable to do that when you're married? Can you no longer pick up your own clothes?
I'm getting married, so I don't have to do that. I'm getting married, so I don't have to do that.
Why would the wife have to be responsible for ironing
because
your
I'm providing
clothes?
Everything for her. I'm providing her with where she's living.
It's a marriage contract.
Buying the food.
You have to provide for her, to have the ability to bed her.
I have to provide for her, and she has to work.
For her for the ability to bed her.
And she has to work.
To be intimate to her. That's why you provide for her.
Also contribute.
Because if you don't provide for her, she no longer has to obey you. If you don't provide for her, and it's not a misyar marriage, she does not have to obey you.
So marriage,
the Prophet, peace be upon him, cleaned his own socks, mended his own socks, but he didn't mend his own socks, Abu Lut? He didn't mend his own socks?
Who washed his clothes? It
doesn't matter. I'm not saying he shouldn't help.
He mended his own socks matters, but who washed his clothes doesn't matter.
Okay.
That shows your mindset.
The thing is,
like, look at just a regular man who has to provide for his family. He's going to be busy.
That's what he has to do, brother. It's your duty.
He has to do that, but only if he's nice. Only if he's nice, then she contributes something. If she's nice, then he will provide for the rent for that month. If she's nice, then he will decide to, buy the groceries for that month or for that week. How about that? Let's flip it around.
What if the husband loses his job? What if the husband has some circumstances where he can't provide for his wife? So now the wife has all authority to just oppress him or mistreat him.
Absolutely no way. Absolutely not.
But you just predicated the wife obeying the husband on him providing for her.
No,
but what if
if you look at the rulings, maybe there's some rulings that say that she doesn't have to, she may still have to obey, but she doesn't have to go to the bed. So it was only I brought that up when the brother said that's why I got married. But actually the marriage contract is for the intimacy. Okay, that's what the marriage contract is, for intimacy. Now, no,
it goes beyond that, because it
does it?
Yeah. Have you heard of the word ta'a?
No.
It means obedience, and that is also part of marriage. That's part of the gender roles that are specified by Islam.
Yes, of course. I'm not disputing that. I'm not
disputing
that a woman should obey her husband.
Okay, what does should mean? Does should mean only whenever I feel like it?
No,
the marriage contract is not violated.
If you don't obey your husband,
not doing
you will be sinful. If you don't obey your husband, you will be sinful. Okay.
And if the wife refuses to provide intimacy for her husband because she had some kind of perceived oppression, or she doesn't like how her husband treats her, that is alone, and that's not acceptable. Because
I didn't say anything about that. I've never mentioned that. I'm trying to look. If you're saying things which I never said any of that, and this is why I said you will push back. But we've got to understand and take some accountability for where it's gone wrong within the cultural countries, whether it was pushed in by the Western. A sister told me years ago that it was something that was pushed in. A lot of Western British ideology was pushed in to countries like Egypt and whatnot in the treatment of the women.
Nonsense. It's feminist nonsense. Where's the proof?
This was years ago. The proof is when the sisters. Why are the sisters going towards feminism? I mean,
it's because of feminist indoctrination. It's because of liberal
it's indoctrination, and the men have had no accountability.
This is just liberal colonial nonsense and garbage that blame Muslim men for the problems of Muslim women. Muslim women are so oppressed because of these Muslim men. We have to liberate Muslim women. Muslim women are turning to feminism because Muslim men have abused them and mistreated them. All you have is anecdotal. Like anyone that I've asked and talked to, about this, whether it's a feminist or a simp. They just have anecdotal evidence. Oh, I heard from someone who did this. I have heard from someone who did that. Okay, I acknowledge that there are bad Muslim men who mistreat their wives, they mistreat their daughters and their families. Okay, that anecdote does not make for a trend. It doesn't make for a whole phenomenon where you can just smear Muslim men as being problematic and, distorting Islam. You have to bring evidence for that. When earlier in this stream, Brother Abu Lut, he mentioned divorce, he cited an actual statistic that it is women who are initiating 70% of divorces. And if they have a college degree, then they initiate 90% of divorces. That's the statistic. He didn't say, oh, I have a friend who his wife divorced him, therefore I think that women are bad and they need to it wasn't like that. It was data-based, statistics-based, and that's how you understand what's happening on a large scale, not through anecdotes. And, if I really wanted to get into it a little bit further, I would say that this is a pretty clear gender difference, that men are operating on the basis of empirical data and, logic and reason, whereas women seem to be influenced very much by personal stories that they've heard from friends and family. And that's what their impression is based off of, rather than facts and empirical data.
Well, I mean, I get where you're coming from, and I agree with you that things need to change. But there is on both sides accountability that needs to be done. I think because we, women, the way we are made, and maybe it's harder for you as being brothers to maybe see that I think women, if we could actually see some acceptance of things that have gone wrong, not everybody, and I didn't say everybody, there's some very good Muslim men, we have very good Muslim men in this ummah, but when you look at the scale of the ummah, it's huge, and how many of those are adhering to the deen? It's not as big, adhering to the deen.
The problem is both-sided, with men and women. It's not one.
I agree with you. We never get to deal with a problem. We have to go in steps. So let's take the accountability. Where has it gone wrong? Yes, we made mistake. We are sorry. We are going to try to fix up.
I take it back. It's not both sides. I think right now the main problem is with women. The main problem was Muslim women who have adopted feminist discourse, and they've been empowered by the liberal state, and they have been deputized by the liberal state to destroy Muslim marriage and Muslim family. I agree with you.
I agree with you. What we're saying now, what's happened is what Daniel has said, is there's been a lot of effeminizing of men, and men have become very emotional like women. I would like to say something. I do agree with you, Daniel, but I really want us to admit that maybe there's not so now, like you say, not so now, but why has it what happened previously? Thank you, Abu Lut, for saying what you said, because that's all it needs, is for brothers to just acknowledge it just makes us feel heard, rather than, oh, you're a feminist, some of the sisters just want to be heard. We love Islam. We love the family style of Islam. We love the fact that the men are the leaders of the household. We love having a man in the house and not another female in the house. Okay, so those of us who follow this deen, we love it. I've seen the condition of the Muslim women in the past 10 years go down incredibly. Muslim women, I'd say around 10 years ago, were wearing hijabs, jilbabs, no makeup. Now you have hijab, skinny jeans, makeup. It's like I don't even recognize them. They're not even to me. They're like bringing a lot of harm upon the ummah.
Yeah, so I want to connect what you just said, which I completely agree with. Things have gone worse and worse for these Muslim sisters and their adherence to Islam. Connect that to what we were talking about before. Like, you're bringing up this issue of men need accountability, which no one disputes. But these women are empowered, and they're getting more brazen in their throwing Islam under the bus, violating basic Islamic norms, speaking with complete kufr, like online, as we saw some examples earlier in the stream. They're empowered because every time a man opens his mouth and says, hey, this is wrong, they're shut down, and those men are attacked, and those men, whether it's by feminists or by simps, and saying, shut up, You shouldn't be talking. How dare you talk to this sister or judge her? How dare you? Don't you know that Muslim women are so oppressed? Don't you know that Muslim women have this long history in certain countries of being, this or that, under the boot, under the heel of Muslim men? This myth of Muslim male oppression is weaponized. That's what's creating the degeneracy. That's what's creating this lack of iman, lack of taqwa that we're seeing from Muslim women. It's related, it's connected. And that's why on MuslimSkeptic.com, on this channel, we're constantly trying to bring to light this cancer of feminism that is tearing the community apart, destroying marriages, destroying family. It's a myth. It's a complete myth that Muslim men, because some of the things that even women who don't consider themselves feminists will say is that I'm not a feminist. I believe that Muslim women, wives, should obey their husbands, that they should be chaste, that they should wear niqab, that they should wear hijab, etc., etc. They will say, I'm not a feminist. I agree with those things. But if you tell them, hey, did you know that in Islam that there's also this kind of domestic responsibility part of the gender roles, they'll get upset and they'll say, no, and they'll rail against that, a little bit like you did earlier in your comment. So those things, why is that? Is we've lost this notion of traditional gender roles. We've lost this idea of like, what does it mean to be a Muslim man? What does it mean to be a Muslim woman? And we're not seeing that the non-believers, the disbelievers, and the liberal powers are using this myth of Muslim male oppression to attack the Muslim community and basically liquidate our marriages and our families.
So from a theological Aqidah perspective, we have to believe as Muslims that Muslims are the best people overall. So we have to believe generally that Muslims have the best akhlaq. So historically, we can't buy into the narrative that, most Muslim men oppress most of their wives or their family members, because it goes against the idea that Muslims are the best of people, which is something that Allah mentions in the Quran. So anybody that is trying to ship that kind of narrative, it has to be totally tossed out. But I think all the brothers here agree that a specific Muslim man does something which is oppressive to a specific Muslim woman, then we have no problem opposing that or speaking against it. Our thing is we want to support Islam. And right now, the group or the faction that is tearing the community apart is primarily sisters or brothers that have also bought into this feminist ideology. And it's not because we hate Muslim women or we want them to be oppressed or we don't recognize when a specific woman is being oppressed. No, we don't want oppression for anybody. It's just that right now, the critical thing that's happening is that our communities are being destroyed by this ideology, and it's an ideology that targets women, and that women tend to buy in and believe in and advocate more so than men.